Hello. We're going to wait a little bit. Let people jump on. Hmm. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Justin Harris. I welcome to my our Monday Musings. This is an opportunity for me on Mondays to get on my soapbox, talk about hot topics, workshop some ideas, and really start to dig into some things that we don't quite get on social media, right? I get a lot of things that are parsed through me by my athletes, and the ideas are like, hey, what about this? What about that? And we're trying to maximize performance and health and different things, and sometimes they're at odds. So this is my place to kind of walk through things uh, and dig into them on the surface level or really deep. It's super open ended for a conversation. Feel free to engage, ask questions on YouTube, hello, or Instagram Live. And uh, I also have a newsletter where I dig into the art of coaching. And this is what these conversations are about, workshopping some of the ideas and different things. I've been on this kick about consistency, and I'll dig into it more in a little bit on what we got going on. But on my newsletter, I I get into it's just a little bit more about the art of coaching and what I've noticed or learned in my 20 years of being in sport, over almost 20 years in coaching, from the elite level to absolute beginners, Olympians, and bobsled and speed and power sports to endurance sports, all these things. Okay, so I have a little bit of experience. And when I do these in the evenings, I grab what I think is a nice glass of wine, but um, I have something from somewhere in France. One of my clients gifted me. So grab a glass of wine unless you're doing dry January. What's up, Adam and Carly? Can you guys hear me? I'm always wondering. I have this like mic for better audio where I'm at. So anyway, don't hesitate to ask questions. And if you're watching this at a later point in time, on where it's posted, comment, ask questions. I'll engage with it and we'll go into it. And so, oh, it's cutting in and out. Okay. Thanks. Is this like better? Do I have to like get that close? Technology. Oh, the feed. Oh, okay. Yeah. There's not much I can do with that. I guess my internet is crappy. Thank you, Verizon. So you can kick on YouTube, but it was okay for. All right, we'll leave this here. Gives me something to do with my hands, so I'm not looking like Ricky Bobby. If you just go to Jay Harris Coaching on YouTube, there should be a live stream, or it's on Facebook as well on Jay Harris Coaching. So you guys can stay here and hang out, but we'll go from here. Okay, so the concept or idea that I want to get into is this idea about like feeling good versus working hard. And it's kind of a little bit of a tricky place to talk about because there's so many examples of like just working really hard and punishing your body on multiple levels. So whether it's med school, law school, you know, uh, you know, uh, other aspects of work, getting a startup up off the ground. What's up, Jillian? To physically, like the Olympic hopefuls and national team athletes I worked with, the college kids I worked with, the private clients I currently work with, like across the board, everyone wants to kind of go and kick butt. So, So it's this place that where we have all these models. The Winter Olympics are coming up in Milano, Cortina, and uh, there's this. Yeah, we're going to talk about like we're going to really glorify the person or the people or the team have been like really down and out, suffering, wondering why they're doing what they're doing, and then hopefully they achieve success. And having been kind of a fly on the wall for the 2014 Olympics in Sochi, I was there that summer. I got to meet some of the athletes and kind of see some of the conversations that were going on with selecting teams and whatnot. But for the 2018 games, I was there um, every summer helping the athletes for bobsled skeleton prepare. I was doing a little bit of exploratory work with USA Luge, and I had some very little bit more just anecdotal experience with the biathletes because I was an endurance athlete. So I was either went for a bike ride with them or, talking to them about their training or hanging out with them and grabbing a beer. And so I worked Olympic test event, all these like cool things for bobsled and skeleton, worked some World Cups. So I got to see, I wasn't there for the selection process, but I did have to get coach's insurance in case something went wrong, $1 million policy, because this happens sometimes when athletes don't make it. And then for the Beijing, I kind of stepped away from it for a couple years and then was involved with USA Luge for Beijing. I was the COVID coordinator to help them get into uh, China during COVID and all this stuff. So I got to see it, and I saw the people who didn't make the teams or didn't win medals, and it was like a lot on the line. And so to me, this was like the pinnacle of sport, and I saw how much destruction, devastation there was. Um, and so you guys can ask questions as popping up or comments. Like this is free form. Like you can interrupt me as much as you want. All right. And so I kind of retooled, what my journey was as a coach and where I wanted to help athletes. And so I kind of found this place where I'm not just comfortable, but in a place where I can make the biggest impact. Right. And so I still have people that are, high performers and different stuff like that and many other facets. But what I'm really trying to do is get people to understand how like health and performance are more interrelated, even though I'm not a doctor. I don't play Doogie Howser on TV. Okay. But I want my athletes to be able to sustain success. At the elite level, it's not really about sustaining success, although it's starting to become that a little bit more with load management, athletes sitting out games and different stuff, and athletes taking a little bit more um, focusing on like mental health and different stuff. We saw this Simone Biles in the Paris Games and different stuff, right? So most athletes think though, like, if I feel good after a workout, I must have gone too easy. And this is what I'm going to be talking about here is this concept of like, if it doesn't make me, it kills me. Or if it doesn't kill me, it makes me stronger. Right. And so, you know, I'm going to say it right now. This belief quietly wrecks consistency. Okay. Just going to take a sip and let that simmer. If I feel good after a workout or training session, I must have gone too easy is a belief that wrecks consistency. So I want to kind of define what feeling good actually means, right? And so feeling good after training usually means like you hit the right intensity. All right. When I write training plans or training sessions or in most coaches, once we have an understanding of who the athlete is and what they're bringing to the table and how they think, and I close my eyes because this is the thing, it's like, this is maybe like the hippy dippy part, but like I have a working paradigm of the athlete. And I'm like, okay, what is this person going to think as they're going into it? And what do I want to get out of it? What kind of intensity level? Right. So, um, I want them to hit a certain intensity. So we use training zones, zone 2, zone 3.5. We hit power targets, sweet spot, different things. So we're having these conversations around really trying to modulate effort. All right. And using perceived effort, pace, or power or heart rate to kind of calibrate in so that you, the athlete, can have a better awareness of what's going on. So feeling good after training usually means you hit the right intensity. All right. It also can mean that you stopped before ego took over. And I can't tell you how many times I see this. It was like, ooh, I was feeling good, or someone passed me, or there was an athlete up, someone else running up ahead of me, or I just wanted to test and see where I'm at. And so when people finish feeling good, I think oftentimes they're stopping before their ego takes over. And what you're really doing there is you left room to adapt, not just to survive training. All right. That's not softness, it's really a skill. The athletes that I see who are successful in the system that I've created are ones who have real trust in what I'm providing, and they ask questions on how to engage better. All right. There can be a sense of perfectionism that I really want to get away from. But this idea that they kind of like check their ego at the door. All right. And it really is a skill. I love when I hear like, how you feeling this past week? And people are like, I'm surprised. Like I feel really good. And then the conversation becomes about kind of how we can respect the work and not fill in space. So again, this is a skill because most of us have worked our tails off, and the I have this idea that like the harder I work, the more I'll get out of it. And in some domains, that's absolutely true. In my career here, the more I show up, the more I send messages out to people, the more I connect with my athletes, the more I'm emotionally intelligent, the more, I understand how to, create better return on investment and onboard people better. All these things is effort, right? All right. However, in training, there's like this indirect nature to the hard work being invisible. All right. So, this idea of like respecting the work versus chasing fatigue. Okay. And so, when we're chasing fatigue, there's a difference, right? So, the one is doing the work, and then the other is proving you worked hard. All right. So I remember having these conversations in college when I coached college. The athletes would like kind of like brag who pulled an all nighter, or who procrastinated their work the most, or who had the most papers due, or projects, or at the time. And I would see how stressed out the kids were. And I'm like, you guys are playing a game where like the cool kid club is like, who's the most stressed out? All right. Who's the most unstable? And some of the kids, like I know like Adderall and Ritalin were like a part of certain academic institutions, and like cranking things out. And it just like didn't feel like, you know, this like kind of popped up. And I'm like, guys, like you're missing the forest for the trees. The whole point of college is, to really learn and grow and like retain the information, not just like cram it all in. If you really understand short-term memory to working memory to long-term memory, it requires sleep to like shift things around in the brain. So, uh, so this idea of like being stressed out and proving they worked hard, to me, I kept reiterating to them like elite and long-term athletes and performers, optimize for repeatability, not soreness, or not this like big hit thing, right? So, I see this time and time again. Yes, you can work to yourself to the bones, and but like most of us need to be able to repeat these things time in and time and time again, day in and day out. So like, the surgeons I coach, the doctors I coach, the lawyers I coach, entrepreneurs I coach, we're looking for, a certain level of stability in your career so that you really can like maximize your impact and profit line, all these things, right? So the quiet truth here, about this all is if you feel good after a session, it often means you nailed the stimulus. And that stimulus is the work, like the one I prescribed or your coach prescribed. Okay. At the Olympic Training Center, I was not the architect of the athletes' training plans. I was this sprints push start coach at the training center. So the coaches wrote the program, and then I would help kind of like read the blueprints or ask the athlete what the key is today and then help them execute that, right? And so I wanted them to nail the stimulus that their coach was trying to elicit. All right. So if you feel good after a session, you'll also absorb it faster. So I talk to my athletes all the time. The amount of training that you're doing and that I'm going to prescribe is the amount that you can absorb. I have one client right now, actually a few, that keep asking for more and they don't want to skip things, and in a certain sense, this is like I kind of, worked my way through like figuring out how to identify, the qualities where the friction points that I receive. And they don't care about absorbing it. They just want to know that they worked hard and that gives them confidence going into the race. Now, again, this can be a slippery slope. Hard work can build confidence, but I try to focus with my athletes about being consistent because consistency builds confidence because you have a lot of touches, a lot of opportunities to work through and engage with the training. And if you're absorbing it and you nail the stimulus, you're going to be fine. The quiet truth, again, is if you feel good after a session, you'll absorb it faster and you'll show up tomorrow ready to stack another day. And whereas Rome wasn't built in a day, it can be destroyed in a day. And then it takes a while to rebuild it up. So just think day by day, brick by brick, chop wood, carry water. All right. So I want to close with this idea, and I'll be here to if you guys have questions or are curious about different things. We're talking about, fatigue and feeling good after a workout. Kind of this idea, you've, if you feel good, you must have gone too easy, and how this wrecks consistency. But training isn't about emptying the tank every day. All right. It may have worked for a little bit. It may have gotten you to progress really quickly. But as a very successful coach who coached multiple Olympians and Olympic medalists in track and field said, listen, everyone, quick to ripen, quick to spoil. All right. If you train really hard, really intensely, you will ripen, you will peak really quickly, and then you'll drop off. All right. Because you didn't build really a base to sustain it. You can't build a 10 by 10 foundation and build a skyscraper on it. All right. It needs to be wide enough and the foundation needs to be secure enough on a bedrock that can take the force and the effort and all the things you're doing. All right. So training isn't about emptying the tank every day. It's about respecting the work so it keeps you working longer and longer and it works for you. Okay. So, I go in depth with this and one-on-one coaching with my athletes. It's probably the biggest hurdle that I have to overcome. So this is why I'm talking about it here. But this idea that, fatigue is loud, like we see it, it's in our face, we know it. All right. But adaptation is quiet. And often people confuse the two. And hopefully by watching this, maybe you'll be able to have the two be less confusing. Okay. Fatigue is loud, adaptation is quiet. All right. Absorbing training is peripheral. It's hard to really see, but the simple metric, if you're feeling good, then that means you're biting off the amount that feels appropriate. The analogy I give often with my clients is like, this is not going like, we don't look at training as like we're hungry and we go into a buffet. This is we're hungry and it's fine dining. All right. When we go into a buffet, we fill up that one big plate, we slam it down. It's amazing. We go get the second plate. All right. And we're starting to get full through it. And there's so many other things that we want to try. And then we start working our way through because we paid a certain amount of money or whatever your approach is. It's yummy. And we end up overeating big time. That's training when we're trying to maximize it and work hard. And if it doesn't kill me, it makes me stronger. But really what I'm trying to do in my coaching profession, like practice, is to help people understand that this is more fine dining and to take their time with it all. So, anyway, for those who just jumped on, we were talking about most athletes think if I feel good after a workout, I must have gone too easy. And I really think that wrecks consistency because then people spend over their budget, bite off more than they can chew, fill up on the early stuff, and they ripen quick and spoil later. So, um, yeah, the best compliment I get from my clients is that of how surprised with how good they feel and that they're going faster. And for some people, this happens in a short term. Some people, it takes a little bit to figure out. But yeah. So, so I'll hang out for a little bit and, I have some curiosities of how you approach to like if you feel good after workout, you feel like you didn't accomplish it or whatnot. But um, I'm wondering if anyone here has ever finished a workout, feeling good and mainly thought like, did I do enough? Yeah, that's the one that comes up most often. That's the one that comes up most often. All right, Adam asks, so I'll pop this up on YouTube. All right. So great points. All right, let's talk about the front end of a training session. Can you talk about the value of pre-run or pre-ride stretching and warm up? Is it a valuable or a miss? All right. Adam's one of my clients. I think he sent me up a softball. No, yeah, I know this is something that he's been focusing on. And so it's not a myth, right? Uh at all to that, warming up and is an important part of your training. Now, when I write training, uh, we have this, in the Peloton world, a lot of my clients are in the Peloton world. And what we do is like, there's warm ups that are short and, you can mix up warm ups and then you get into the main session and then you can pick a cool down and you can get three dots that you did something. And how I write it is like, if I give you 45 minutes, like the whole session, warm up and cool down is kind of part of it. I don't do a great job with cool down, if I'm going to be honest, unless it's a workout. If it's a training session, we just like chill at the end or whatever. Now, a lot of my athletes, and I'm not sure. Well, I'll just say it. Adam's one of these for sure. Is like a full schedule athlete. Family, job, different stuff, right? And so when we start becoming constrained for time, and we have goals to get to, a warm up's part of it, but I tell my clients to like ease into it. So from a simple thing is we want to get, the blood flowing. We want the blood to be going like deeper into the muscles to warm them up, get them going, give them the goodies that they want. And we just got to think like pumping the systems, right? And so we build a little bit of sweat. And so some of my athletes, like they want to run in shorts all year long and it's getting cold. And that's like part of the process. I remember being talking to, what was his name? I'm thinking of the guy I coached with. Oh, 1968 Olympics, one of the three people on the stand. I'm going to look it up because for Mexico City track, Mexico. It's late at night. Mexico City podium. Oh, John Carlos. Yeah. I got to pick up John Carlos from the airport and connect with him after reading his book and stuff. He came and spoke at the college we were at. But he used to have his athletes like, in Palm Springs, California, which is like 110 degrees, wear sweatpants. So it helps warm up everything. So everything's working more, better together. The thing I get into is like, how much time do we have? So if I'm with a sprinter, like, and we're going to do something really intense, I'm going to use a lot of that time to warm up because we need really high percentage of full force. For distance running, I think like aerobic runs, different stuff like that, long runs, like, I would love for people to start a little bit slower and work their way into it and like see where their body's at. What most people do is they get into the session and they they kind of just get in, and then like wherever they're at, they're asking themselves like, or they're telling themselves like, I started my run and I'm at 8:30 pace, and this is what I have to hold for the rest of the way. And they didn't really listen to their body. So I don't know if I answer that eloquently. It's such like a simple thing, but can be a little bit, well, it shouldn't be complicated. Can you talk about the value of pre-run or pre-ride stretching and warm up? Is it valuable or is it? So yeah, it's definitely, Adam, it's valuable. We should be doing it. If that's not clear, that's a mistake on my part. So we'll talk about it a little bit more. But yeah, a little bit of movement and mobility. So even if you're like, I tend not to do this. Like I just like ease my way into the run and then I'll stretch afterwards. But if you're feeling something that's a little bit tight, then you can, get going with, like I'll stop runs and like stretch out if I'm not feeling great at all. Okay. So yeah, hopefully I answered that. Okay. All right. So Valerie. All right. So once we've deprogrammed that no pain, no gain mentality, are there any mental tricks for dealing with boredom, impatience for early session or early season training, or in my case, coming off an injury? All right. Love this question. Okay. If you've truly deprogrammed from no pain, no gain, this would maybe be a little bit less friction or easier. And so I'm playing a little, razzing you a little bit. But boredom and impatience. So I remember hearing Kobe Bryant talk about practicing and whatnot. And, like if we look at the best athletes in the world, like, Tiger Woods in golf and Serena Williams in tennis, when she was really good, right? Kobe Bryant, Tom Brady, these things. Like, I remember hearing Tom Brady, like football's in right now. So I remember hearing Tom Brady, like people are like, mess up in practice and just be like, hey, like, don't worry, I'll be fine for the game. And Tom would rip him a new one and be like, I want you to see you do it in practice all the time so that when we get to the game, it's like practice, right? And so if you can see the purpose of what you're doing and really understand it, that will allow you the opportunity to like just embrace it, right? So like coming back from injury. So this is where all right. One of my things is I'm trying to be more clear this year because there's so many it depends. So let me read it one more time. Are there any mental tricks for dealing with boredom and impatience for early season training, or in my case, coming off injury? The mental tricks that you can play here are really understanding why you're doing what you're doing. And then you can engage in it even more. So for instance, if you're coming back from a running injury and you have access to a bike, more than likely you can bike with intensity. So like you can do a power zone class, you can do a VO2 max class, whatever. And you can get some of that, intensity to make you feel like, hey, I'm actually training. Even though when people get injured, they're like, I'm not training. And I'm like, you are training. Like, it's just, this is the right load or amount that we can do that your body can actually absorb it because your body's like recovering and it's getting back into the rhythm. So the first mental trick or anything is really just understanding why you're doing what you're doing. So asking whoever wrote the training plan, the coach, or, ask other people who've been in that position, what is the purpose of this? So when people are injured, I'm thinking about like musculoskeletal, the 3M's. So 3M's, like in training, like these three pillars. It's like musculoskeletal load, like how much pounding is the body doing? Running is more intense than biking, which is more intense than swimming. And elliptical is somewhere between biking and running. And so there's things that we can do there. So if you can't do the pounding, then we just shift down the musculoskeletal load kind of spectrum. Then there's metabolic. So what's happening at a cellular level? So if we just do easier training, like we're missing out on some of the other capacities that we can develop as long as, you can bike fine or swim. And then swimming is like a skill and proficiency. So if you suck at it, like everything's going to be hard. And then there's the third M, which is mental. So like psychological is like, if you absolutely utterly hate swimming, but you're good at it, we won't use swimming as a modality. If you utterly hate the bike and you never want to touch it or see it again, then we won't use the bike. But then that limits us to, if we can't run, just elliptical. And then most of the times that's not enough for most people. So really believing in understanding why you're doing what you're doing. And then the next mental trick is like open up the timeline more than you think. So most people want to be fixed in like 2 weeks. And if you took 2 weeks off, it's going to take you at least 4 weeks to like get back in the rhythm just normally. And then if you have an injury on top of that, so I would say like double or triple the time frame. And then you'll feel less pressure, stress when things are not going well, and you'll be less inclined to like push too much. All right. So and there's different kinds of pains too, like sharp, pinchy. Like we want to stay away from this. Some soreness is expected. So anyway, it's a great question, but the mental tricks are understanding, engage why you're doing what you're doing. I believe in education matters. If he who knows a why, or one who knows a why, can deal with any how. And then, uh, yeah, like understand the 3M concept, and like you can kind of play around with that. So anyway, some people said the Instagram feed is in and out, and it might be my internet. But if anyone here has any questions about training or anything, what I was talking about today is how the concept of like if I feel good, then I didn't train hard enough, or I didn't do what I was supposed to be doing, and how that really wrecks consistency. You should feel good. Doesn't mean it's not hard. Doesn't mean you don't push. It just means you need to be careful. All right. Because elite performance is not healthy. What's up, Amy? Hey, Nicole. I wonder if you got the boys. They can see me, my nephews. All right. Yeah. Ask away. Stream, live stream, YouTube, Facebook, anyone there. Any other questions that pop up, let me know. I'm here for another like 5 or 10 minutes. And curious about where you're at in your training, what events we have coming up, or we're excited for. Again, Monday Musings is my opportunity to get on my soapbox, work through concepts, ideas, things that I get to talk about, things that I'm seeing with my clients, friction points, help alleviate some of these things and whatnot. Okay. And then, yeah, if it's at night, I drink a little glass of wine. This is Chateau de Bortello or something like that. I don't know the name of the wine, but apparently it's 90% Merlot, 10% Camp Franc, 2019. So I'm like still waiting for it to open up. Blackcurrants, blackberry. This is thick, but we got some pot roast and potatoes and green beans, so I think I might go with it. All right. Adam, I actually think the days where I feel good are the most satisfying. I know and trust I've gotten the workout in, and I'll be ready for the next workout. Yeah. Yeah. When we get to that place, it's like we unlock a whole new level where you executed the session, you engaged with it, you ask lots of questions, you check the ego at the door, and you listen to your body. Man, those sessions feel so good. Like it's almost like it's more rewarding than the sessions where you just absolutely punish yourself, because the next day, although maybe you bit off more than you can chew, it happens sometimes. Even when we feel good, like the next day we're like, ooh, okay, like that's a little sore, or I'm really tired from that session, and that's fine. That's training. That happens. But when the big thing is staying on budget. So, man, I've almost knocked this glass over several times, and no, it's not because I'm drunk. I've only had 3 sips. Love it. Valerie, I'm curious to what injury you're getting over. But I'm going to jump into, like, while I'm waiting for people to talk, meeting John Carlos. Like, I remember my dad when I was a kid, like we learned about John Carlos and, kind of the Black Panther movement and stuff and different things in school. Today's Martin Luther King Day. And I remember my dad saying, like, man, that guy's an icon. Like, that's like sport became American history, right? And I knew John Carlos was coming to speak, and I was super excited because I was this track coach, like sprinters and stuff. And I read his book and just how much the government, FBI, like messed with him, and all these different things. I read it, like it led his wife, the first wife, to like end up committing suicide just from the pressure. Like they were outside his house, tapping his phones, all these things. And he's a Harlem boy, like like icon legend, right? And so I had to pick him up at Newark Airport, which is like a 2-hour drive from where I live and where this college was. And uh, it was a Sunday night at 10:30. It was like no one wanted to like do that. I'm like, this guy's a legend. I'm gonna get to spend like 2 hours with him in the car. This is an amazing opportunity. And I picked him up from the airport. He's a he's a figure. I mean, he is like 6'4", tall guy. He's in his early 70s. And he was just like, "What's up, my brother? Like, thanks for picking me up. I appreciate it." He was so genuine and so appreciative. And like, I had a little crappy car. I felt bad. His knees were like up against, but I was like, apologize for it. He's like, "Dude, I just super appreciate that. I'm not like, I appreciate you." Right. And so I asked him questions about his training and like the AAU days, like back in the day, like they were only given like a couple dollars, and how he worked his way around it, and different things. And he was just so amazing to talk to. And I felt like I was talking to like a friend, like right away. And here's this like amazing person. And it's we didn't get home until like 12:30 at night. I'm like, "Hey, are you hungry?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm actually really hungry." And I found a 24-hour diner right next to his hotel. And he wasn't staying in a lavish place, right? And I take him, get him his food, I bring him in, like I help wheel his stuff, and you know, and we get back to the door. He's like, "Hey, man, I really appreciate you." Like, and I go to shake his hand. He's like, "Get out of here! Give me some sugar, man. Like give me come here." And he gave me a big old hug, and he was so nice. And then the next day I saw him, and he like shook my hand and told everyone how, like he really appreciated me coming to pick up. And this is like in front of the whole department. And then he spoke in front of like the school. And he was like, "That guy Justin who picked me up, oh man, it was like legendary." And he's like, "Do you want me to come out to the track team and talk to them?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." And he came out and talked to the track team, and the kids are like, "Who's this guy?" I'm like, "Are you guys kidding me?" Like, this is a very smart school. Like, you guys should know some American history. And he was amazing, and it was really special. So anyway, yeah, it was an experience. And I told my dad I was picking him up, and my dad was like so excited, and he wanted to hear all about it. And there's some things I can't talk about, publicly. Uh, how he opened up, like he was just such a good guy. And at the end of the day, that he's like, "I grew up in Harlem and I hustled, you know, and he's still a hustler." And man, that guy was awesome. So, all right, Valerie, finishing PRP treatment on torn hammy and hip labrum, benched from running all fall. I've been struggling, strength training and PT, starting run walk intervals this week. All right. So I'm curious to how you tore your hammy and stuff. I mean, I'm assuming it wasn't in an acute setting where you misstepped and tore it all, but it could be. If it's chronic, then yeah, you really, when people get in this position, I actually have a gentleman right now that I've been working with for a little bit. I actually coached him in college, speaking of which, and I think he was there when John Carlos was there. I'll have to ask him tomorrow when I talk to him. But he just ignored signals for like a year because he got in the Boston Marathon. He ran it one time and then he wanted to crush it. And he's like, "Coach, I need your help again." And he was a sprinter and he's actually running quite well. Long story short, we've backed off training. PT's not really responding. We're talking months. And so he's on the PRP kick. So it'll be interesting how we overcome it. But yeah, chronic. Yeah. So our bodies are often smarter than we are, and they always keep the score. Yeah. So, all right. So I'm going to pop it up so people can see it. Yeah. So you're returning rock one. And the thing is, you spent so much time that it's going to take a while to get back. And I'm not going to try to pop your bubble. I don't know all the intricacies of this, but let's just say you stopped in October, 3 months of running, and now you're getting back into it. Like, I have an athlete who fractured her foot We started working together like 6 weeks out from a marathon. You know, try to, like she had people that tell her it's fine. In the morning of, I was like, hey, just listen to your body, and end up fracturing. And so she's been in a boot and different stuff, and she's been cross training and all that stuff. But we're at 30 seconds for like 2.5, 3 weeks, like 30 seconds on, minute off for 5 minutes, 5 rounds, and that's it. Because we're doing all the other metabolic training, VO2 max, elliptical, all that stuff. But we're just going to progress her slowly. And it's going to take several months before she's out running for 30, 45 minutes. And she's totally invested in it. It's a tough pill to swallow. But the thing I see that people make the mistake on is they start very cautious. And then once it's starting to respond well, then they just jump up too much. And so if you can just continue to take small bites, it's like, you enjoyed a glass of wine and a cocktail and some muscle, or some mussels and a salad. And then boom, I'm going to like do this big, like like a pre-meat or second-D, like pasta or something. And then like by the time you get to the dinner, like you're just so full. So just take your time. It's often that I see is like people don't feel too much in like week 2 or 3, like the things make sense, but it's like really week 4 to 8 where people bite off more than they can chew. And that's the plate where you need really to have restraint. And just take an opportunity to dissolve the ego. That ego there protects us. I'm a fast runner. I run this pace, or, I've lost 100 pounds and I never want to go back, or whatever it is, or I put out this power. And I can't tell you how much that hinders your overall performances. So yeah, it's yeah, just be patient. All right. So yeah, I'll hang out. Any questions? Welcome to the people who joined. We've been talking about how feeling good at the end of the session is the desired outcome. And if you feel guilty about it or feeling like you should have done more, it's really the thing that wrecks consistency the most that I see. And so we want to have some, approaches to that and understand it and define it, but like the quiet truth, really, if you feel good after a session, often means you nailed the stimulus, you'll absorb the training that you just did faster, and you'll show up tomorrow in order to stack another day feeling good. And that compounds. Training is like dollar cost averaging uh, into your investment portfolio. So no problem, Valerie. Thanks for engaging, and thanks for being vulnerable. Yeah, it's awesome to be able to engage with you guys here and whatnot. So, any last questions or observations or curiosities? Anyone want to talk about what races they have coming up? I won't chew in the microphone. All right, London, any tips? It's pretty narrow. I hear it's a little bit narrow in the beginning. It's a little bit rolly. Chicago is the fastest major. In Berlin, they kind of go back and forth, but unless you're an elite athlete, if you're not an elite athlete or up in the very front, I think Chicago is the faster one and better because you have aid station on both sides. The streets are open and wide, and there's not that many turns. Berlin has quite a few turns. The aid stations are on one side, and then London's next, and then New York's the hardest. Boston has a stigma around it. And then Sydney, that's added in, becomes. I've had one person run Sydney, and that's definitely like it's got quite a bit of like like just the rollers just keep coming. It seems. All right. So London, uh, tips. Yeah, get into the right pace group. I would be a little less conservative. I've had people really get trapped in the back because I like to run a little progressive, and I've learned over the years that London is definitely not the place to do it, and most of the majors aren't because there's so many people. Um, Claudia, why was London your absolute favorite? Uh, I've I'm curious. Um, I don't really like for training for races. Like I don't really change too much that we're doing. I still do hills for flat races and flat stuff for hilly races and whatnot. But all right, on the YouTube, Adam says it was a fun, varied course. Has a big downhill early on that you shouldn't go crazy on. All right, so that's good advice. All right, from Adam, one of my clients that ran it. So, just be mindful of like trying not to brake too hard, but also let it go. Like it's a Goldilocks somewhere in there. London has water bottles with tops rather than those paper cups. All right, yeah. So lots of narrow sections, though, as you mentioned, that it's hard to get around people. Yeah, that's I learned from Adam and his wife Carly. Um, that yeah, we need to be like in a decent like if you're trying to run, let's just say you're trying to run 4 hours, I would be in like I forget if it goes in 15-minute increments, but I would be either right at the front of 4 hours or like just back of the 345 or 350 or 50 the group or whatever it is. All right, not going for a PR, coming off a toe fracture, but would like the negative split and feel strong. Yeah. So I think the tightness of the course and amount of people allows that opportunity to be progressive, which would be awesome. Hopefully your toe is like totally 100% healed. Yeah, it's rolling. Yeah, London has a lot of narrow sections in the beginning. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, both people are talking about that. Yeah, and I recall that too. Last year it was warm, and I think somewhere around mile 16 you get into the financial district or whatever they call it, the glass district, like glass district or something like that. My client Ernesto said that he just felt like he was like an ant and Honey I Shrunk My Kids. Like he just felt like all the sun was like bouncing and reflecting off like right onto them, and instead of ending up in the med tent, he had to just like he just shut it down. So like most of the majors, it's chaotic busy. I would say my real tip, all right, um, is this is probably already like sealed the deal. Like you probably already figured this out or like have this set in stone. But if you're going there, any of the majors, I recommend people to get there like Wednesday, Thursday ish, get situated, do the race. And then if you're going to do the touristy stuff, is to do that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the following week. Yes, you'll be sore, but walking around is good for recovery. It's good for you. People return back to running much quicker when they walked around the whole next day and stuff like that. And so try not to walk around so much if you've front loaded the trip. Try to take Ubers, get stuff around. All right. Through neighborhoods, once you get past that, it's wonderful. And the weather for me was perfect. Yeah. Buckingham Palace was a pain to get out of, though. Yeah. So, but my tip is be careful. Everyone's like, oh, I'm fine. Or if you live in a city like last year, Berlin, I had a client who lived in New York City. She walked around a ton, but she like went on a 2-week trip with friends like Copenhagen and different stuff. And then, uh, just spent so much time walking around. She still PR'd by 9 minutes, even though it's hot. So weather's going to have an effect on it, but start easy and work your way through it and be progressive. So, yeah. I actually I have a small group for London. Matt's doing it. Mr. Matty Wilps. Then I have 1, 2, 3, 4 others doing it. No one in Tokyo this year. couple in Berlin, couple in New York, a few in Chicago. Last year I had 9 in Chicago, plus someone in the 5K. That was, talk about needing a drink after that one. Because it's not just race day. It's like everyone's training, keeping them on track. There's a lot of management. But, all right. All right, everyone. If anyone else has any questions or comments, how's training going? How are New Year's resolution going? How are we being consistent? Yeah, Dead Spot in 23. I've heard that. But good crowd. Yeah. Nothing beats New York, though, right, Claudia? Oh, yeah. Man, this is opening up. Super nice. Yeah, nothing beats New York. But I think, all the majors are so hard to get into, but if you're really trying to rip it, Chicago's really the one. Honestly, these days, they're so dependent on weather. If you get a warm weekend or something like that, it can really influence it. Ooh, Guinness at the finish in London? Oh, that's cool. Adam on YouTube says, London has every single kilometer mark as well as the miles. Messed my lap marker up right away by accidentally hitting it on the kilometer marker a few times early on. Yeah. So the first time you see one and it's like 6 minutes in, that's not a mile. You're not too fast. I mean, damn British, imperial system. And then it is Europe, so they need kilometers. Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. Adam says he felt like a superhero. Yeah, all of a sudden you got real fast, man, out of nowhere. All right. How many marathons can you actually perform well in a year? How do you recommend periodizing in training? Oh, man. All right. Claudia, Adam, you guys know this one. I'm going to get on my fucking soapbox right now. Big time. All right. I really love this question. How many can you do in a year? I'm going to add to that sustainably. Like, what can you sustain year in and year out because you really enjoy this? All right. If you're really trying to maximize it, I mean, you could do 3. Like you can make 3 work. Like I've done 3 with people, but the third one isn't usually their fastest one, right? And so it's yeah, I like to separate them. So spring one, fall one. Once I get into the clients that really like engage with me to have a conversation and not just say, this is what I got into, coach, and I didn't listen to anything you said. Um, those are the ones where we look at the continuum and spectrum of like races developing certain qualities or skills. And so a marathon's like obviously endurance, efficiency, mental fortitude, problem solving, stuff like that. Whereas a 5K is like just fucking raw horsepower, velocity, acute visceral toughness, and different stuff. And so I want my athletes to be able to race across the spectrum. And so if it's up to me, it's like 1, and then we work on the other skills throughout the year. So even when I have people do 2, when you do a spring and fall, you're basically training year round for the marathon. Now, depending on what your schedule and life is like, but all my clients that have done 2 a year, I would say they last about 2 years and then they're burnt out. Like they're like, I don't know if I want to do a marathon. I want to finish the majors and all these, we have these conversations. Um, because we live in reality, right? We have families, we have jobs, we have whatever, and we're not elite athletes, right? And we have friends and we want to go out and we want to enjoy a glass of wine or two, right? So this idea though is my simple answer is set up for 2 max a year, and then really if you're looking for performance, I would do 1 a year and then work on the other areas of growth or things to like spread the love. What's up, Jared? Yeah, one for Claudia. Anyway, so that's my recommendation is to spread the love. And the majors are really about like achieving it in a lifetime, not how many times can you get a 6 star. Some people can handle it. Most people though, they handle it for 3-4 years and then they're done. And I talk to those people. I see them race 2 or 3 a year, and then after the third year or fourth year, they're like, I don't like running. This marathon wrecked me emotionally. It took so much out of me. Those are all normal things because marathoning is not really healthy. All right, being physically fit is healthy, but last time I talked about like having like looking at your fitness and training, like your investments, and like having a balanced fitness portfolio, like pure health is really like Peter Attia talks about this, but like real health is like having a really balanced portfolio. So like, like say like 20% endurance, 20%, strength, 20% mobility, 20% like, mindfulness, meditation, yoga could be like somewhere in there too. And then 20% like nutrition, eating well, right? That's a balanced portfolio. All right. And that's a balanced fitness portfolio. When we do a marathon, I mean, we are heavily skewed towards endurance. Strength becomes a lower priority, even though it's important. Yes, the elites are doing it, but they have 14 hours, 12 hours to sleep, these different things. And so, um, yeah, think of it like a time to do it. But if you really spread the love, like I've had athletes that have competed in marathons for, 10, 20 years. They're in their late 40s, early 50s, and they're still PRing. Um, and they're getting it done and feeling good. Like I had 2 years ago in Berlin, not last year Berlin, but 2 years in Berlin, I had 6 athletes, and there was 2 first timers in their late 40s, and then I had twins that were 50 years old, and their one's PR was from like 10 years previous. All they wanted to do was break 4 hours. They ran 3:57 at 50 years old. And before kids, all that stuff, you know, and then the other one PR'd by like 13 minutes and ran 3:31. So like you can run well later in life. Like everyone thinks that, it's like training age. Like for me, what's up, Marissa? For me, I'm never ever going to touch 14:42 in the 5K ever again. Even if I gave it everything I had, cut 15 pounds off, trained my tail off. Like I think the best I ever could get to, again, if I really cleaned up everything, I believe, I mean, I know I can run 16 flat. Like, I know I could do it. But like sub 15, it just would not happen. Right. It's been too long since I've done it. And so, as we age, we're going to lose some capacity. Some people can really hold on to it through consistency. They don't get too far away from, good fitness. And so, you got to kind of keep that in mind. If we take big gaps away from it, you have children, big time job, or, you're no longer motivated, then we're really, like you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot a little bit. Now, I have friends, these 2 guys I coach with who ran their entire lives, and they were in their late 60s, and they were just hobbling. So their knees, each of them needed knee replacements. Their backs are all messed up, like all these things. Not saying that just like running. I mean, they raced and ran hard, like into their 50s. and they just had nothing left to give. And I looked at them and they're like, why don't you keep racing? Like I was 35, 32, I think 28 years old. I ran 15:35 for 5K. Um, and then, yeah, like 3 years ago, like I was in the best bike shape. So it can be done. But I was just like, look, man, I'm going to take a little break, like, because I want to be running later in my life. I want to enjoy it. So spread the love. All right. All right, Neil. I've enjoyed half marathons for 3 years and I'm debating whether to do a marathon. How would you navigate the decision? And what have you learned from clients who have navigated this decision? Yeah, go for it. Do it. But your first, so half marathon, I'm going to say this nicely, and I don't mean it derogatory, but like you can kind of fake a half marathon, right? Like you can train on the weekends, do a couple sessions during the week, and you'll be fine. You can have a positive experience. Maybe not, you're definitely not going to run your best. All right. Um, a marathon you cannot fake. Can't fake it. All right. Um, what happens is the transition, though, like people understand that, like you feel it at a DNA, like a genetic level, like marathon is different. Most people bite off more than they can chew. They try to like there are static plans, like a training plan that you can do and just check it off. I just find most people need a little bit more guidance for their first one than that. Uh, if you're a full schedule athlete, meaning you have a lot of, your calendar looks like there's not a lot of white blank spaces in it, family life, work life, whatever it is, right? And so you have things like kind of filling up your pitcher, and it's easy for the kind of the pitcher or the bathtub to overflow. And most people end up banged up because they're scared of the distance and they force a lot of things, especially like 8 weeks out to 6 weeks out. So the the things that I've learned is that like it's there's more responsibility to like do the little things in life to make sure that the run's successful without it being all encompassing, and everyone you're around fucking hates that you're doing a marathon because that's all they hear about, and you're so obsessed about it. Like I don't think that's a healthy place either. So coaches can help ground you. uh, Consultations. I'm not like I'm booked. Like I'm not taking on any more clients, but like find a coach to help you through it. I think that's like you get a best bang for your bucks. So, but do it. And you don't do a major. Majors are like, it's like the fucking Super Bowl. All right. And then like every other race is going to feel like dumb and silly, like to that point. And this is like people end up like, oh, like I don't want to do local ones because they don't feel good. Start local, start, with smaller ones. You'll have more space, like you'll be able to figure it out a little bit better. And I recommend that. So, Neil, where do you live? I wonder if I can, you know, talk about some of those. All right. All right. S. Deutsch, let me just see, what's your first name? Yeah, Sarah. That's what I thought. All right. I hate 5Ks death. You should make an accountability group and we'll all run it all out 5K at the same time. Yeah, we could do that. Oh man, I ran a 5K in COVID. My friends had like an accountability thing and we just like each week we had a different challenge. So beer mile, run a loop. You got one shot at it and then you had to predict the time the second time you did it and who can get the closest. And then we did a 5K. My wife does not know my athletic career. Like she met me well after it. And I had her drive me to this rail trail flat and I went out and ran it. I think I ran 18:30 and I hadn't done shit in 10 years. And I almost threw up for like an hour. And she's like, is this what like training's like and racing? I'm like, no, this is just me out of fucking shape. And the lactate is just like totally taking over. But yeah, I mean, some people would say marathon's death, right? So listen, if you want to be successful in the marathon, you have to be proficient. Excuse me, you don't have to. You would benefit from being proficient at all the races. They all have something to teach you. So that 5K is going to help raise the horsepower, and where marathoning is really working on fuel efficiency. And so by having the two, you end up being like a hybrid Ferrari. Like you end up being the complete thing Right now, if you don't do 5Ks or you avoid speed training, then you're just a fucking Prius, right? Like you're just like the fuel mile is good, but nothing sexy about it. It just chugs away and gets fuel efficiency and saves you money. But this is why like the marathon takes forever. We love it. It's exciting to be in. It's a big challenge, but yeah, work on both. You need both. Absolutely. All right, Claudia. Well, I think it's about stages working with where you are in life. Yeah, absolutely. Hello, Miss Beacon Endurance. What's up, Jane? We need a Justin Harris Run Club. No, we don't. I've done it before. There's a good Hudson Valley Run Club. They're doing a good job there. All right, Neil, Orlando, Florida. So you got quite a bit in that, in those neck of the woods. I don't know what's exactly in Orlando. You have Disney, but that's a big, that ends up being tons of people and it gets chaotic. But you have the Gasparillo Running Festival this time of the year. I think it's in 2 weeks or so in the Tampa St. Pete's area. That's a really good one. There's a bunch in Tampa that's flat. Then you also have, what's the one? Oh, the Dana-Farber one in Jacksonville. So you got plenty down there, but don't I would pick and depending where you're at, Neil, this is unsolicited. This is just what happens after a couple sips of wine for me. And this is like be my bedtime. If you're going to do a marathon, we're talking marathons, not half marathons. Well, I think Gasparilla has a marathon, but the Dana-Farber one has one. It's flat. It's good. But you can pick a destination one. The thing is if I were you, being Orlando, Florida, I would pick a spring marathon somewhere because you can train. Do you want to temporarily use? Okay. I don't know. Hopefully this works. But you want to train when the weather's appropriate to be outside. And so if you pick a fall marathon, you're going to struggle with running outside or having to wake up super early, train through the summer. But we say summer miles equal fall smiles. That's like the opposite down where you're at. Okay. Oh, poor connection. All right, Adam. I'd rather have a non-hybrid Ferrari. Well, you have a Ferrari, my friend. That's why. Oh. All right. I know I'm in and out here, but I'm finishing up anyways. Next time I'll hit cell service. So I'm down in my basement, so I get shitty service. So, yeah, well, maybe Ferrari will come out with a hybrid, but it's just an analogy, my friend. All right. Just think about it. Anyway, a Prius, if you got a Prius up to 100 miles an hour, top speed's like 120. You're at like 90% of its capacity, whereas a Ferrari top speed is like 240 and 100. It's just humming. So being successful in endurance sports is about horsepower and efficiency. Some are more skewed towards efficiency. Some are more skewed towards horsepower, meaning like I have clients that their 5K is their highest VO2 max and they're proficient at the marathon. That's what I'm trying to do. And then some people are skewed towards marathon. They're super efficient and I'm trying to increase their horsepower. But the big mistake that a lot of people make is they spend too much time working on areas of growth and their strengths become not so strong. So imagine if like my 5K speed, my VO2 max was my strength, and that's like, let's say it's at like a 6 out of 10. And my efficiency, I use up a lot of fuel quickly and whatever, and that's at like a 3. Well, I can spend all the time doing zone 2 running, and I'll move a 3 to a 4 and a 6 to a 4, and then I'm a 4 versus being, what's that, a 5, 4.5 or something like that, right? So just something to think about. Keep your strengths a strength, and slowly over a long period of time, I'm talking a year, 2 years, 3 years, work on your area of growth. All right. 9:00, getting past my bedtime. I got to eat dinner. So appreciate you all for engaging and asking questions and talking about your races have coming up. If you haven't done it already and you're not on my newsletter, go to my Instagram, in my profile, join my newsletter twice a month, 5-minute read, the art of training, 20 plus years of experience of being an athlete, coaching people along a spectrum of modalities and sports, spectrum of ability levels. And I really try to like dig into a problem that I see and help frame it and define it and provide a solution. And there's too much fluff out there. There's too much misdirection out there. And it's my opportunity, one, really work on my writing and synthesize my ideas. And it potentially can help you out. You can join hundreds of others. And I can say that, I'm almost at 400, which is pretty cool. So join me there. It's called Progression, the Art of Training. And thanks to all my clients for hanging out and joining me. And we'll see you next Monday. All right. Adios, peeps.